You know what? I don't want to talk about Witco or Tiki anymore. I just want to do these optical illusions all day long. Excuse me 1 second. Hey, it's a sailboat. So please be quiet.
He looks right at me. Why are you looking at me about that?
Oh. Don't heckle us.
I'm hoping for applause, actually.
Let's start the show with a round of applause.
Good answer, Kim. Good answer.
Yeah. There's 3 people, so it's like. Did she tell you that I started a series called Witco with Ray?
No.
And that is what this is.
Fantastic. Before that, it was Tiki with Ray.
I have a couple different series. And my original series was, well, I'm Ray, obviously. And I wanted to branch out. And I did 1 episode with you and Ken.
And it was such a hit that...
Well, the thing is, we did another one. And then we did one live. And the point is, it's just sort of like, you did your presentation in New Haley, which was going to be a Tiki meetup. In Atlanta, Georgia. And this was actually 2020. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about what are you going to do, what your ideas are. And I was bouncing off ideas. I'm like, oh, you should do this, just kind of do like a trial run. Like Grant's place and have a couple people over, maybe do kind of like a dry run at kind of the Devil's Reef, and it just never happened.
Right.
But then you put it all together. And then I actually came up and we actually went to Red Rum. And you're like, well, here, I'll do the presentation for you. Mm-hmm. See what you think, Ray. I'm like, okay. And she set up the projector in your living room, and you went through it, and it was like unbelievable. I mean, the amount of information. And like, obviously, I've never met your dad, but it reminded me of my grandfather. And I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I know this guy. Like, man, I wish I would have met him, But after it was all said and done, Heather goes to me. She goes, and I'm just scratching the surface with the information that we got here.
Right.
And I'm like, are you kidding me? And I'm like, then I need to start. I want to start a series just about Witco with Ray. And right now, we're at, well, where are we? You tell me where we are.
We're here at Guimas Island, which is a small island within the San Juans, with my dad, Kim Westenhaver,
and
William Westenhaver's son.
Yep.
And we're sitting in our cabin, which he built in the early 60s. Right?
Your grandfather built this?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
By hand?
Well, it was actually a kit, and you order the kit, and they deliver it, and you put it up. And so it's been modified multiple times over the years, because it was no indoor plumbing.
And
originally just an A-frame.
An A-frame with a little kitchenette, but there was a sink and a place for a stove, but there was no bathroom attached. So it was
very simple.
Very simple, very fundamental. And after 1 year, my mom says, "This is not good enough. We need a toilet indoors."
I like how your mom thinks, because I'm the same way.
Yeah.
Because when Heather was saying, it's like, oh, you should come up, and I'm like, you got a bathroom? Can I take a shower? Because I'm not a roughing it kind of person.
Yeah. But honest, how before that they camped here every weekend or summers or whatever. So how long were you all camping here before the A-frame got built?
Well, I think just a year, because before we bought the property, we had relatives that had places on the island. So we used an uncle's cabin down the beach, just, a couple 100 yards. And so we stayed there for several seasons, and then we bought this property, and we camped on it for a season, maybe 2, and then put up the building, and then the following year added a bedroom and bathroom onto the far side.
Yeah, there's a bedroom over there. There's a full kitchen over here.
Right.
And I'm staying at the annex that Angela Lansbury almost bought. From Murder, She Wrote? Is that right?
That's what we hear.
So
That's what my Uncle Ty...
So what's the story with that?
That's what Uncle Ty says every time I come over now.
Yeah, I couldn't. I don't think I can embellish that at all. I think just probably leave it there.
I imagine it's like your neighbors are like, we're glad you bought it because you're a lot cooler than.
Yeah,
we hated that show. That show sucked. When you guys would camp here, what would you do? Like, would you go fishing here? Or you go hunting, or is it just come here for like the weekend?
Well, it was summertime. We were here a lot. We would camp, and it's all water related.
Yeah.
So it would be boating. My dad liked to sail. He always had some sort of a boat, and he'd modify it to put a sail on it. So usually just something small. But fishing and crabbing and
beachcombing,
boating, beachcombing, just traveling around.
So
Partying. There was a lot. This is in the 60s.
Partying.
There was a lot of partying. People up and down the beach, they'd get together and would show up on Friday afternoon, and whoever was on the beach, they'd be having cocktails, and pretty soon there'd be people bringing their food over and having shared dinners and partying. And the nice thing about this cabin is it's an A-frame, and so there's a little balcony up there that looks down on the dining room table, and as kids, we would be sent to bed. Well, we just sit there.
You're not really sent away when you're sent up there.
No.
So
you're listening to everything.
So Heather, you were saying that this was your bedroom when you would stay, but that was actually your bedroom too.
Before me.
Yeah, for when I was little, we were the first ones, and then we'd watch the party go on till we fell asleep. And then when I got older, then Heather took that role, and she would be
I'd
up there.
hang over and watch what was going on.
Yeah, you can literally like hang over, and I was wondering when we were going to stay here. I'm like, at first I'm like, I could have stayed up here, and then I realized like,
no.
Yeah, but what am I going to do if we go to the bathroom? So.
Yeah, coming down the middle of the night because it's a
fun.
ladder. There's no stairs. It's a ladder, so it's a little awkward. But the fun thing is that then Heather's children did the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really?
They would be up there watching mom and dad and friends and family be up later and partying at the table and just having a good time. But the kids, you'd look up and there's little faces looking down, watching, hearing everything that was going on. So it was quite an education.
You grew up fast here on the cabin.
Yeah.
Hey gang, we'll get back to the Tiki conversation here in just a second, but I want to let y'all know they have t-shirts for sale. They are screen printed in America. The artist is Tony Canepa, and they're going for $20 a piece, $25 including shipping. If you're interested in buying one, go to my website, tikiwithray.com, and then there's a tab that says buy a t-shirt. Click on there and just follow the prompts. So thank you very much. When did your dad start getting into this whole carving thing or being an artist? Was he always that way, or was it a thing like there was a point where he wasn't and then all of a sudden he got into it?
Well, he was artistic as a kid.
Yeah.
Which is basically just doodling. I don't know how much art classes he took in high school.
Yeah.
But we do have some correspondence that he did when he was during World War II when he's in the Navy, and he would send stuff back to his parents, to his mother, and there was artwork. There was always a lot of artwork when he said. So he had that disposition, and then when he got out of the service after World War II, he went to LA Art Center.
He served in World War II?
Yeah, he was in the Navy. And he was in the South Pacific, and his Navy experience was a lot like the movie Mr. Roberts. Have you ever seen that movie?
No. What's Mr. Roberts about?
Well, it's about a military vessel that wasn't a destroyer. It was basically supply.
Yeah.
And it was there was a captain on it played by James Cagney.
I know James Cagney.
And he was a hard-nosed, by-the-book guy. Henry Fonda and Jack Lemmon were crew. Henry Fonda was the second in command, and he wanted to get into war.
Yeah.
And James Cagney's character wouldn't let him go. And so there was this, tug of war all the time.
Yeah.
And so it was a comedy. They never got in the war, but they just fought back and forth all the time. So they had their own little war going on.
So Grandpa never went to battle.
No, he didn't. And so this ship in Mr. Roberts was kind of a dysfunctional military vessel, and that's kind of what his experience was like. He was on a floating dry dock in the South Pacific as an electrician. And so he had some experiences with battle, but not, he didn't carry a rifle and go into battle.
Yeah.
So he did have time to do his
Draw.
artwork and stuff like that. And he was greatly influenced by the South Pacific and the art that was there and what he'd seen. And so when he came back, he went to, on the GI Bill, he went to the LA Art Center and got his degree in art. And, the influence of the South Pacific was pretty strong. So later, my cousin who lived up here got a hold of him, and he had the import-export business. And they talked about doing artwork, and he did his first design, as you probably have told the story, with a bar of soap.
A bar of soap.
A bar of soap, and they did a tiki, and he sent it back with him, and kind of just snowballed from there. And that's where he first got into doing the carving. So he hadn't done carving with the chainsaw until he actually got up here, and they were trying to figure out the best medium to create this product.
So, so literally the first thing that your dad would have carved was soap.
It was a bar of soap, just with a
not wood first.
Correct.
I didn't know that.
They had carvers that up here that carved.
Was it
He learned how to do it, but the first carvers he sent the soap up. Someone else carved the original until Grandpa moved up shortly after that. Within a year.
Within a year. Mm-hmm. So you were down in California too, and then you came up then?
Correct.
You were a little boy.
Yeah, so I was born in Southern California.
Okay.
And my older brother was as well. And then they moved several times. I mean, we were pretty nomadic for a while. Came up to Washington, back down to California, back up to Washington, and then ended up settling in Mount Vernon to start the business. So he moved back to Aberdeen first, and that's where he was born. And so we moved there first, and back to California, and then back up here.
Well, so Aberdeen's a long ways away from here.
It is a long ways away from here.
Even Mount Vernon to Seattle is like a good solid hour and a half, pretty much now. Did you like moving up here? I mean, coming from California, you're like, I don't want to go where it rains all the time.
No, I was pretty little. I didn't.
You didn't even.
No, I didn't remember. I didn't like California.
Oh, okay. Well, then it worked out then.
And it was interesting because we moved up here, and once we became established, we've never lived in a traditional neighborhood.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was always kind of just on the edge of town, and.
Maybe that's where I get it from.
So where do you live, Mount Vernon? Well, not really.
And I always say that about where I live, because you say you live in Cedar Valley. Well, not really.
No, you live in
way out in the boonies.
Skagit County.
Yes.
Yeah, you're a county resident.
You're on a dirt road off a dirt road.
So yeah, he kind of grew into it. After he got out of school, he did a lot of artwork. He did painting and tried a variety of things in California before he moved up here. He would make things out of plywood.
Plywood?
Yeah, and paint them.
Yeah.
Like for Christmas decorations, he would make a Santa and a sleigh with all the reindeer.
Yeah.
And put them in the yard. And he would sell things like that. He says that he developed paint by numbers before paint by numbers came out.
Really?
That's what he used to say. Now, he used to drink a lot. So, and he certainly could have. He was very imaginative. I mean, he
was creative.
Very creative, and I mean, just you can look at the stuff that he's done over the years, and it's like really nothing else that has been done.
Well, that's the thing that I keep on thinking about is your dad's style is unlike anything I've ever seen before. Like you're talking about, like, okay, he was in the South Pacific and it was influenced by that. Mm-hmm. But like my favorite tiki ever period is the Big Joe, and that looks like nothing from the South Pacific.
That's from his wild imagination.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. And I'm just curious. I mean, when he started carving all this stuff, and obviously adding it to your house, right? Because as soon as I walked into this cabin, I knew where I was. Like your dad, your grandfather's in. Like it's like boom. Yeah, obviously. There's no one else who could have created this place.
Yeah, and that's true, and that's kind of his MO. I mean, he was just very creative on the use of style and design from a medium, from a style, and then incorporate it into all sorts of avenues. And
so when you guys would come camping here, would everyone else around, did they all know who your dad was, or was?
Well, yeah, I mean, eventually, because, you know, I mean, he knew who they were and what they did for a living, and clearly his home was a lot different than everybody else's.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering, as you're growing up, did you like it, or you're kind of like, yeah, this is, I don't know if this is my style, Dad.
Well, you know, you take it for granted. You know, when you grow up with something like that, you think everybody's lives
That's
like
what
that.
I did too.
Yeah.
I just thought that this was my normal.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know that it was any different until I married Ken, and he was like, "This is wild. Look at this. No, really look at this.
Yeah.
This is so cool." I never really... I mean, I knew that Grandpa was creative. I knew he was artistic. I knew it was cool, but I didn't realize that other people would like it.
Right. The significance of
Right.
what he was doing and creating.
And how big it was, and how... honestly, how...
extraordinary.
Right, extraordinary, but also how many people across the entire country had this stuff and loved it and wondered about it and really appreciated the creativity.
I mean, was your dad perceived as kind of like a big deal here, or
No.
no?
No. Certainly not in our household. But as I got older...
Nope.
Or like your mom. I don't care who you are. I want a bathroom in this cabin. Stat.
Pretty much like every household, yeah. You know, there's that hierarchy, and Dad doesn't always at the top.
Well, I love that
like...
you have the bed, and it's like a full on like a Witco bed, like it would be.
Oh, Grandma and Grandpa
But then she covered it up with like a more floral print.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah, eventually.
Yeah.
You know,
But for a long time, it was faux fur.
it was fake chinchilla for
Right.
years and years and years before she decided to change it out. But
He was not in charge of the household, I'll tell you that.
no. So,
And he wasn't a celebrity during his...
but he was well
time.
known, and he was as well known because of his personality as
Yeah.
it was for his creativity and his artwork.
He didn't have any airs about him.
No, not at all. And,
He's
you know,
very humble. Didn't
And-
think
and-
anything that he'd done was extraordinary.
Well, fast forward to now.
He's a celebrity now that he's gone.
Your dad's a very, very big deal. And like, you know, like any Witco pieces is like finding gold anywhere. And it goes for, you know, it's not cheap, I'll tell you that, you know, and just, I mean, do you know that? Like, do you realize that, like, how big your dad is now? Like, just, like, even, like, right now. I mean, like... I
do to a degree, but not until I hear somebody else tell me that does it really kind of sink in, because, you know, it's always been a product that people buy, wanted to own, wanted to have in their home. So it's different than absolutely anything else that's being made or has ever been made. I mean, it's really just unique in its entirety. So I kind of understand that there's an interest
You're
in it.
not surprised.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, but I don't really understand the depth of it, I guess.
When did Witco go out of business?
78.
78. Okay.
78 was the last catalog. I think it was 70.
76 was the last catalog.
And then I'm guessing as far as like general population interest in Witco, probably
Yeah. Flat.
weaned, you know. As Heather was saying, there was the Tiki revival that happened in like the early 90s, and then which kind of saved Tiki in general. I mean, like even like any kind of Tiki carvings or anything like that. And that's been like a slow thing anyway. I mean, fast forward to now, there's like Facebook groups.
Hordes of them.
Witco Facebook groups.
Well, and I think the internet in general has aided the whole revival.
Of course.
I mean, it's just as there's all this
People can
communication
share
ability.
information super quickly, and
right, and images and communication, and it's just been huge.
Yeah, there's so much information that's out there that's about your grandfather and Witco. I mean Sven Kirsten. He wrote the Book of Tiki.
Yeah.
And there was also Tiki Modern, which is essentially a book about Witco.
It really is.
I mean, this is a love letter to your dad.
Yep.
So,
it's a wonderful book.
I mean, did you ever think that someone would write a book about your dad?
No.
So that's saying something.
And such a great book. I mean, it's really good historical and tells about the Witco and what it entailed and the process. And it's a very cool book.
And what I love about Witco too is it's family.
Mm-hmm.
This is a family business that's being passed down to, well, your daughter and Ken.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just want to say thank you for taking time out of your busy day to come on my show. And I think there's a lot of people that are going to appreciate hearing what you had to say.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
And I enjoyed it. It was good.
You did your presentation for Hukilau. And I'll tell you what, because we're talking about the idea of like you're going to be doing this presentation for Hukilau.
In Haley.
What's that?
In New Haley.
In New Haley.
Yeah.
That's right. So I was going to start.
Start over. Start over. Just start over.
So when you were going to do your presentation for Tiki Oasis,
Oh.